Hi, this is SYbarra. This is my final submission for Milestone 2, CSC588. Let's go ahead and get started and go through the demos. So the very first demo, first off over here, as you can see, I have all of my file management systems in place. I ran into a few hiccups throughout a couple of the demos. I'll have to switch over to a different project for one of them, but we'll get to that in just a second. Starting off the first demo, I have all of my demos right here under my game side, under game app demos. So let's go ahead and fire up demo number 1. You can see I have all of my header files. They're passed in as timer events. Int trigger time sets at 0, so it made for easy debugging as I went through. I just increment this based on 1 second. As we get down a little further, I do some of the time management locally for the parts that have to do millisecond increments, but we'll get to that in just a second. So if we run this, you can see that I have my spaceship. It's a little hard to hear with the audio recording software I'm using as far as the panning goes, but you can check inside the code and it will show you how it pans, but let's get started. So you can see in the printout, it gives a little bit of an update on what is happening on screen, if you can hear the audio. So that is our side-to-side panning. This is the volume test. That sounds a little hard to hear, but the volume decreased there. It says achieving mono or stereo through mono. Right there, sound cut out from the left, and you just have song B still playing. And that is the end of demo 1D. You have about 8 seconds of silence, and then 1E is going to pick up. And that is it for demo 1. So as you walk through some of the different demos, let's stop here. As you walk through some of the different demos, you can see a couple interesting points here. As I said earlier, the time management system, I'm doing some of the times a little more locally inside of the demo event. That way I didn't have to differentiate between milliseconds and full seconds in the overhead demo 1 file as I was setting the timer events. This just loops through, fires off the different events at certain times. Here I had to get a precise approximation as to when the timer event went off just to make it a little more consistent. I noticed sometimes it was firing off and sometimes it wasn't. Now for demo 2, this was a bit of a headache getting these callbacks to work with the handles in the management system. I tried a lot of different things here. I ended up just having to move on actually a few hours ago. But let's fire up the original PA4 demo I had to get the voice callbacks working. So I had it working on stream end. So essentially what I did was I had one source voice that basically stitched on waves at the end of the stream, and every time the stream ended it would fire off and attach a new wave object to the source voice, and I controlled the panning and the volume down here at the end of the buffer based on a count. So let's fire that one off. And for demo 2, this is inside of PA4. I just wanted to give you something working. So to trigger this one in PA4, you just have to hit the space key. And you can see over here, the bytes required consistently stay at 0. And it pans to the right, volume's lowered a bit. Pan to the left. Pan center. Pan to the right. Pan to the left. Pan center. And as you can see, it's done, and now the buffer is screaming for more bytes to be added. So let's close out of PA4. Like I said, a lot of my issues came with the new management system and the handles, and the fact that I wasn't able to directly attach the wave to the source voice with the layers of the playlist, the game side, the audio side. Now what I had tried doing in the end was over here in my main Milestone 2 with the audio commands, I tried to work in some workarounds to get this to work. However, it was not cooperating. At one point, I was able to get the sounds to play at the end of the stream, but it wasn't reattaching to the buffer, and it was still screaming for bytes, and all of the wave files were still just playing concurrently instead of one after the other, so that was a bit frustrating. Moving on to Demo 3. Demo 3 was a little confusing as far as what needed to be done, but I am pretty sure I got it working roughly how it should be implemented. So we have our priority table. Essentially what I'm doing is I'm passing in at the different time intervals, 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. I'm passing in the sounds given a priority. Now, the way I worked this into my architecture was if I pass a priority of 0, then inside of my game sound manager add, it does not do anything. So I can show you that right now real quick. So go to definition, create audio sound. Oops, actually no, sorry, it was down here. Where was that? This thing. Well, I want to get going with the demo, but what you'll find is once I add this in at the appropriate spot, it will essentially check to see if the priority is greater than 0, and if it's greater than 0, then it sets it into the sound table. However, if the priority is 0 or less, then that means it should not be funneled into that priority sound table. So that's how I was able to get my other demos working concurrently with this. But let's fire up Demo 3, and you can see what's happening. And a lot of this is going to be viewed in the output window, which I'll pull off to the side here. But so you can see here, as it's updating, you have 6 sounds playing. And as you scroll through here, you can see how the sound table is updating based on the priority. And so what you end up with at the end is only the highest priority songs playing. So that was Demo 3. Moving on to Demo 4. Now Demo 4, I had some of the same issues I had with the voice callbacks, with the user callbacks. I couldn't quite get things linked up to function out properly. I understand we needed to use that and at least fire off the printing of the user callback inside of the on-stream end. As you can see here, I attempted to get that working. As frustrating as it is, however, I couldn't get the audio sound to pull the user callback properly to get this to fire off properly. However, I did get the sounds to work properly, so we can at least see that. So you get the catchy little 8-bit tune going. As you can see, it says when the demos are firing off, part 0 at 0 seconds and part 1 at 3.5 seconds. However, since I passed the sounds in with 0 priority, the table is not updating, as I had mentioned earlier. Here's our timer list. That's the active sets of timers, and we had 2 timer events on there. Unfortunately, it could not print. Like I said, for whatever reason, this is not firing off properly. I was having trouble getting the voice callbacks and the user callbacks to link up properly. But if you take a look inside of the user callback, you will be able to see that, where'd that go? I have a user callback command that I wanted to essentially fire off the execution of the user callback object, but inside of here is where the print statement is. Unfortunately, this was not firing off, like I said, because of the issues with linking up the voice callback and the user callback between the game and the audio side. And I'll just be upfront, I was not able to get to asynchronous loading. I understand the concept of it, where we spawn off a third thread aside from the game side and the audio side, and we load up our files on that separate thread and pass everything through via those circular queues, as we did with passing the other commands. So overall, this was a pretty good class. I feel like I learned a lot about the multi-threading. I at least feel more comfortable navigating not only the multi-threading, but also it was a nice review of adding in my management systems. It was a great review of just how to kind of write clean code. I tried not to go too far off in making globals like I did in my game engine class, which I'm sure you'll check my video here very soon. You'll see it gets quite messy. It was a good review in just navigating very poor documentation as far as the Windows native systems for the X-Audio 2 interface goes. I got a lot of experience with that. And also overall just managing time, both the timer management system, it was a great review of triggering events, and also just my crazy hectic schedule of trying to teach second grade full-time and juggle 2 of the most intense software architecture classes that DePaul has to offer. So I hope you enjoyed. I tried to keep things a bit more organized. I think in the end, though, that did a bit of a disservice as far as my ability to get things quite done. If I could go back and do this again, I think I would be a little more iterative. I don't think it would take me as long. I think just being more comfortable with things is great. And also, I think I would be a little more focused on getting just a rough prototype working as opposed to just keeping things a little more clean. I'd clean things up in the end after I had a working demo. So let me know if you have questions, and I hope you enjoy grading this. Thanks.